I'm Aidan Leyen. I'm going to teach you a lesson on gerrymandering. Oh, I didn't see you there, Mr. Radebaugh. Now let's get back to our lesson on gerrymandering. Alright, first we need to understand what a district is to see how we all just redraw the districts. According to the original census on the last voting data, there were about 710,000 inhabitants per district. And most of these districts are just drawn extremely weird, trying to give one party a political advantage. For Loyola Law School, well, they're going to tell us about how some of the states hold their districts and how they vote to redo the districts. So most states just hold primary control in their state legislature, where they just need 50% of the vote to redraw districts. And if we know anything about the state legislature from like the John Oliver videos, that's pretty scary because they're not the best. And a lot of them aren't overlooked that well. For places like Connecticut and Maine, there are super majorities that you need to redraw them. So you need 2/3 of the vote to redraw the districts. In Iowa, Maine, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont, they all have advisory commissions that kind of guide how they're going to be done. And Alaska, Arizona, California, Idaho, Montana, and Washington have independent commissions that just draw all the district lines for them. An article in the Baltimore Sun done by Dave G. Savage, who has covered Supreme Court and legal stuff since 1986. He actually works for the LA Times. Says that both Democrats and Republicans are ridiculed for their gerrymandering stances. In Maryland, Democrats are usually ridiculed. In last year, about a court side with a Bethesda man who challenged the drawing of the districts in the previous election. North Carolina also gets a lot of scrutiny from the Republican side. Representative David Lewis said he will use political data to gain a partisan advantage on the map and maintain their partisan advantage. And Senator Bob Rucco said there's nothing wrong with political gerrymandering. It is not illegal. And personally, if you're using something saying it's not illegal to say it's okay, it should probably be illegal. Because you can't just go into an airport and scream bomb because of the First Amendment. That's just a horrible idea. For how effective gerrymandering process is, Christopher Ingram, who wrote in the Washington Post, he previously has worked with the Brookings Institution and Pew Research Center, quoted some of Stephen Wolf's work for Daily Cost, which is a liberal site, who draws nonpartisan maps for places like North Carolina. In the last election, there were 10 Republican districts and 3 Democrat districts in North Carolina. But if you're to draw it on a Democratic gerrymandering standpoint, you could get that number all the way down 4 Republican districts and 9 Democratic different districts, which is just a huge amount of difference. If you use his nonpartisan maps, which we're going to get to in a little bit because that's how I personally agree with how we should do them, you would get 5 Republican districts, 5 Democratic districts, and 3 swing districts. So those 3 would change. Based on the entire country, he did this for the entire country. In 2012, the Republicans had most of the seats, and in the 50 states, if you used his maps, there would have been 52% majority for the Democrats when they had a 51% vote, which is just completely different than how we had it in that year. In 2014, there would be 50 states, and it would have went to the Republicans most likely because 53% of the votes went to Republicans anyway. Now, I believe we should have nonpartisan groups doing this out based on what the Daily Cost said. They have 5 points on how they should overlook these. They, of course, need to ignore partisanship. So that just means that they're pretty neutral. They wouldn't try and push them one way or another. And they have to be in compliance with the Voter Rights Act demand for majority-minority districts. So that's just a law. If they break it, it won't work well. Then what they said there should be within the same thing are about the same demographics, cultures, socioeconomic classes, and this is because if you can have it, so you could just put a whole bunch of like socioeconomic classes. Let's say you're voting liberal because of that. They could put a minority of you in each district, even though you could have the majority overall. Like you could have a 60% of the vote, and you could win no districts. They also want to minimize unnecessary counting and municipality splits throughout these maps, and they want geography compactness, but they want it just so they're continuous. So they combine so they don't combine disparate parts of an intrastate region, which means that they all have to be connected in the same.